Hey everyone, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to cover each and everything that you need to know to master security concepts in your Node.js application. So let's see what are the things that we are going to learn. So we'll start with learning cookies and JWT. We'll move to CSRF protection, CORS fixes, rate limiting, role-based access control, NoSQL injections, helmet and safe errors, ENVs and secret management, and at the end we are going to have a dedicated VPS and deployment sections. So let's see all the sections in details. So we'll start with the base application and we'll move towards section 2 where we are going to deploy that base application in our hosting or VPS, and for this one we are going to use Docker manager, right? Then we'll move to section 3, which is auth flow hardening. So you're going to refactor a login flow. You're going to understand the concept of access token, refresh token strategy, right? And then we'll move to another very important section, which is how you can work with cookies. Then we'll move to section 5, which is CSRF protection. So we are going to add the protection for our write routes. You will understand that how you can send CSRF token from frontend and how you can validate the token on the backend. Then we'll move to section 6, which will be a dedicated section on CORS fixes, and then we are going to have two more very important sections. We are going to understand how you can work with password and validations, and then we are going to also have a dedicated sections on rate limiting, abuse protection and account locking, right? And then we are going to move to another section which will be role-based access control and ownership checks, right? So for this one we are going to have user and admin roles, how you can protect admin related routes, how you can enforce resource ownership checks. Then we'll move to section 10 and 11 where we are going to understand that how you can prevent NoSQL injections and how you can write safer queries or filter queries. Then we are going to have express hardening and safe errors section. So you're going to understand that why we need helmet, how you can disable certain properties in express, right? And then we'll move to very important section, which is how you can manage ENVs, secrets and configs safely. And at the end we are going to redeploy the same applications via terminal. So this is what we are going to cover in this particular video. You will learn a lot of things. Now without further wasting any more time, let's get started and good luck. Okay, so now let's get started. So first of all, you can see that I already created the starter application, and this is very important because as I already mentioned in the intro multiple times that this is not a normal MAN application codes that we are just going to write code. For example, let's say how you are going to create cookies or how you are going to handle middleware. Those things also we are going to do, that is part of this video. But in this particular video we will focus more on the security concepts. Okay, so what I mean by this, so mostly we are going to understand some of the flows that normally you will not find in other YouTube videos, and second we are going to focus more on concepts, and then some of the things we are going to apply section by section. Okay, so we are also going to do some of the coding, but mostly it will be conceptual, and also we are going to do copy paste because we will not write each and everything. But before that, what will be our next step? Next step will be, first we are going to go through the demo application that I've already created, and then first step will be, first we are going to deploy that application in our hosting or VPS, and once we'll do the deployment or initial deployment, after that what we are going to do, we'll move by section. For example, every section we are going to learn one particular concept, let's say cookie, CORS, then you have CSRF tokens, then you have how we are going to manage env variables. So there are a lot of things because there will be multiple sections, and then we are going to understand the concepts, diagrams, flows, and then we'll apply some of the concepts in our coding. Okay, and at the end we will again redeploy the application in our VPS to see the difference. Okay, now this will be a very interesting project, and I'm pretty sure that you will not find these kind of videos. Definitely you can find, you have to search differently for each and every concept. So what I've done, I've combined all the concepts in this particular video. So first let's go to, so you can see that I already have two folder, client folder, server, git ignore and compose file. Okay, so now here in the server, so first let's go one by one so that it will be easy for us to understand when we will start our main sections one by one. So you can see that we have a user model. So in the user model we have the name, email, password, right, role, right? So user will be either normal user or admin user, and default is user. So this is all about our model. Next, if you go to routes, you will see there will be a lot of problems, or that actually I kept intentionally so that you can understand that what is actually wrong here. So for example, you will see that here for now we are actually not hashing the password, and that is the biggest issue here. Okay, so I'm just going to show you that you can see that we are directly storing the password here. So these all are the mistakes that I've done here, so that you can understand that normally what you should ignore whenever you're going to create any kind of production level application. Okay, and the same for if you go to our server.ts, so you can see that we are just directly using CORS here, right? It's open CORS we are using. Login, we are simply as I already mentioned, sorry, not logging in the register, we are not hashing the password, right? We are also creating a 7-day JWT. From our front end side, when we are going to do the API call and everything, if I go to the pages and home page, and you'll see that what you're doing here is simply getting the token from the local storage. Means what? Means the token is now stored in the local storage, which is not a good practice. So those things we are going to understand. Okay. So now what will be your next step? Okay, one more thing I wanted to mention, that when we are doing the logout, you'll see one very interesting point, that we are simply removing the token from our local storage. We are not doing any kind of API, right? So that means client is storing the token in the local storage, and logout is only client side removal. Okay, and this is also not a bad good practice. So these things that we need to focus in the upcoming sections. So if you go here, right, for example, let's say go to inspect, and let's go to network, and I'll go to register, and let's say I want to register with my name. Let's do 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's copy this, register. Okay, so now user is actually registered, and if I go to login, and let's do 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, login, and you can see that you are now currently logged in. The point is actually, if you go to applications, you can see that we don't have anything in the cookies. We are not storing in the cookies anything, and we are storing the token in the local storage. Okay, so now remember, I can't explain each and every point. That will be clear when you are going to start each and every section. Okay, so what will be your next step? Next step will be, now we need to understand a lot of concepts. Okay, so there will be a lot of concepts we are going to cover, but before that, what we are going to do, right, first we are going to deploy this application in our VPS. So let's see how we are going to do that. Why we are doing this? Two things. So first of all, we are going to see that what are the things that you should avoid in the prod applications, right? What are the mistakes or best practices that you should do? So that is the reason we are actually deploying this insecure application. Second, we are also going to understand the deployment steps, and I'm going to show you one very interesting thing, and that is we are going to use the Docker manager to deploy this application very easily. Once we'll do that, then we'll start our all the sections and all the mistakes that we have done here one by one. Alright, so what will be our first step? So first up, we are going to deploy this app in our VPS. So I've added a link in the description, so you can just visit that link, and there will be the plan selection. Now this is very important. Now here, for most of the people, KVM2 will be right choice. So it has 2 CPU cores and 8 GB RAM. And who should take this? Let's say if you're intermediate dev running multiple containers, your backend, front-end DB, you're working on your small SaaS or maybe side project. So in that case, you should opt for KVM2. Now coming to KVM1, if you're a student, right, learning backend or DevOps, you want to run one simple app for your presentation purposes, maybe let's say you're working on your portfolio projects or demos, you should opt for KVM1. Now coming to KVM4, now this is where it will be for serious builders or scaling, right? So let's say if you are SaaS founder, you have real traffic, right, heavy APIs. So in that case, it will handle high traffic, multiple services and workers. So in that case, you should opt for KVM2. But for now, I'm going to choose KVM4. So for now, I'm going to choose KVM2. And here you can opt for either 24 months or 12 months plan. So if you opt for 24 months plan, so you can apply ASM20 for extra 20% off. So you can see that you're going to get 20% off, and the same goes for 12 months plan also. So here also you are going to get a 20% off. Okay, now here one thing I wanted to mention, and that is if you're not using OpenClaw, right, so in that case you can uncheck this part from here. And second will be another very important point. This again comes to when you have, like, let's say your own SaaS, or maybe you're serious about building something. So in that case, you can opt for daily auto backup options also. So for now, let's say I'm going to choose 24 months plan, and let's do continue. So once you continue, you have to log in, and once you log in, you'll be in the checkout page. So let's see how we are going to do that from that particular section. All right, so now once you'll fill your billing address, so you have to just do the payment, and then you'll be redirected to the VPS landing page. So let's see from that part how we are going to set it up. And for this particular one, we are going to use Docker Manager. All right, so here, so you'll be landed to this page. So first of all, you have to choose the server location. So I'm going to keep this one as India. Choose next, and this is very important. So for this particular one, we are going to use Ubuntu, and then you're going to do select, and then this is very important, and these you actually need most of the times whenever you want to connect to your VPS from your local. So you have to give a strong password, and the recommended option will be, or the process will be, once you do the password, or you can maybe generate a strong password from here, right? It's going to create a strong password. Copy this password, and then you can just keep it, and do not share this password with anyone. So once you'll do next, the setup will be completed, and now we are going to redirect to the VPS landing page, and let's see how we are going to do that from that particular section. Alright, so this will be your VPS landing page. So you'll be having a root access, and this is the root password from where you'll be able to change this. And now first of all, we are going to go to this Docker Manager. Okay, and here we are going to install the Docker Manager. Okay, so first let's do install, and let's do click install here. So this is going to take some time. Once this is done, before that also what you are going to do, right? So I've added the initial code, right? The startup code in the description, so you can download from my website. So download that code and post that code to your GitHub, because we need to have our GitHub URL so that you can directly deploy that from this particular terminal. So let's see how we are going to do. All right, so now you can see that you will be in this particular screen, and first what you're going to do, will do compose from URL. Okay, and before that we need to do one small change, and that is, you can see that currently we have compose.yml, but we need to change this one to docker compose.yml. Okay, so here first what we are going to do, will be using this URL github.com/username/repo docker compose.yml. So first let's go here, and before that, one more thing I wanted to mention. In the compose.yml file, I added the client URL, which is my VPS IP that you can easily get from your VPS from this overview option. And also in the web, I've added this VPS IP, right? And these Mongo URI and other secrets that we are going to add later. So first let's go here, and then let's do rename, and then I'm just going to do this one as docker compose.yml, and then I'll do rename docker compose file name. So I add this. Okay, so this is done. So now let's go here, refresh this. Okay, so first let's go here and copy this URL. Okay, this username we are going to get from here, and then I'm just going to paste it here, and then simply do deploy. So that's it. So let's wait for some time, and let's see what is happening. Fantastic. So you can see that project is now deployed, and the reason why this is partially running, because we need to add those URLs also, the secrets also. So let's open this. So you can see that, but this will not work. So first let's click on manage, and let's go to env, and then add the URLs. So here first of all, I'll go to my server directory. So in the server directory we have two Mongo URI and JWT secret, both we need to add. So copy this, and let's copy from here. I'll add one more, and let's do save and deploy. Fantastic. So you can see that this is now running. So now let's refresh this, right? So you can see that we are already getting results. So let's log out from here, and you can see that you'll be able to log in, and this is working fine. So this will be the overall process. This is very simple. This is how you are going to use Docker Manager to deploy your app. Now remember, we are going to also do the same thing manually, so that also I have shown in my previous videos, and if I get time, I'm also going to show in this particular video also. So with this, the initial app is now running on the VPS. So with that, now let's start learning all the section one by one. Alright, so now we have successfully deployed our application to our VPS, right? Now we'll forget that part for now, because what you're going to do, right, each and every section we are going to learn a new concept we are going to add those concepts practically in our code, and then we are going to again redeploy. Okay, so we are not going to do a deployment once again right now. All right, so first of all, what are the things that we need to understand? First, let's start with working with tokens properly. So first, what we will do, right, and you'll see that in our current code, if you already downloaded the code, right, so what I'm going to do, right, I'm going to add multiple so I'm going to add two source code. Okay, so one will be the initial code so that you can identify what is the problem, and one will be the final code. So first you can see that what we are doing, that we are simply doing a plain query with raw email and password, right? And if you notice one thing which is like very bad, and that is you're not doing any check that whether the user actually entered the correct password or not, and you have to first understand that what is happening here, right? So you are simply taking the email and password from request.body, right? We are simply doing a plain query. If there is a match, right, so in that case we are simply creating a token using JWT.sign. And then the point is here, what we are doing, we are using a expires in, which is 7 days, right? So now why actually this long-lived token is weak, or the concept of, or maybe to put in a better way, that why a single long-lived token is weak. So now let's start writing. So why a single long-lived token is weak. Now if you think that these concepts are not important and this might be boring, you are missing a lot of important concepts that we are going to cover. Okay, so please do not skip this video will not be that much long, but you are going to learn a lot of things. These concepts even help you immensely if you are creating your own application, or maybe let's say you start your own company and you want to create your own SaaS. So you have to apply each and everything that we are going to learn in this particular video. Okay, so don't take this particular video lightly. So first of all, what I mentioned, that what actually we are doing right now, we are, or basically our app issues one JWT, right, which actually stays for 7 days, right? And what client is doing, client actually stores that in our local storage. So maybe let's increase this on to 14. Okay, or let's do 15. So this is what is our current flow. So now why actually we need token? Now first of all, you need to understand why actually we need these kind of tokens. Now remember, token actually used for our identity, right, to identify that particular user, for our session continuity, and what actually we do, and for our long-lived login persistence. So we'll do long-lived login persistence, right? So these mainly are the reasons that we need a token. Now there can be a lot of other advanced concepts. Let's say we have RBAC, role-based access control, where based on the token we can decode the token and we'll understand whether this is a normal user or admin user. That we are going to discuss later. But here what we are simply doing, we are simply using one single token for identity, for session continuity, and for long-lived login persistence. So for all reason we are using single token, and this is why bad, because this is bad separation of concerns. Then what might be the solution, right? And I'm pretty sure most of you already know this, and you might be thinking that why I'm actually discussing this access token or refresh token in a security course, because this is important before we'll move to the next part. So the solution will be, we have some concepts that is called, we have access token and we have refresh token, right? So we have these two concepts. What actually access token is, access token will be always short lived, right? Maybe let's say 15 minutes, 10 minutes, or even if you go to banking applications, right, you do just one thing, right? In some of the banking applications, you log in using your net banking credential and try to refresh the page and see what will happen. The moment you refresh the page, right, either the page will be like the page will not load, or second, you might be automatically logged out. Okay, so here access token will be short-lived, right? Short-lived means, as I already mentioned, it will be either 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, dependent on the kind of applications that you are creating, right? Now here you have to understand that what will happen if this is stolen. Now consider you have a 5 minutes lifetime for that particular token. So the blast radius, you know what is blast radius means? Blast radius means that what might be the impact on that, okay, to put in a simple way. So blast radius will be smaller, is smaller. And remember, these all the things I'm not like that I just read from Google or official documentation or from ChatGPT. I'm just telling you these all the things, blast radius and all kind of terms I have actually used in my companies. Okay, so this is real experience that what I'm actually explaining all of you in this particular video. And the second one will be refresh token. So refresh token will be long lived. Now, as I already mentioned that here we are using the refresh token, sorry, we are using a single token for all the reason. So for that reason we have something called refresh token. So we are going to have a long lived token. And why actually we need this? Use or used only to get a new access token. Okay, and one thing I wanted to mention here, because in this video I can't cover each and every concept, but you have to be also careful that how you're going to use this. Okay, so I wanted to mention here. Now, what is the role that why actually you need all these access token and refresh token? The reason is very simple, that so that your browser that you're using, the browser should not carry one powerful token forever. For example, let's say 7 days also is too much, right? So now if I try to put this one in a simple way, so your access token will be, let's say your access token is your temporary office pass. This will be best explanation. And what will be your refresh token? Your refresh token will be your, maybe let's say you have a card in your desk in your office, right? You have a card in your office desk, and this card you use to issue a new pass. Okay, so this will be your refresh token. Now, why actually this matters in prod? Because that is what we are learning here, right? That we need to understand that why all this security. Because remember, access token is going to appear more often in your application flow. Refresh token should be handled very, very carefully, right? And why this is important? Okay, let's not discuss this one now, because later we are going to discuss. You have to understand that when you're going to use access token, when you're going to use refresh token. Okay, so this is all about the token things or concept I wanted to mention here. Now before we'll move to, I actually added all this diagram to explain in a simpler way, but let's understand the cookies concepts first, then we'll move to that diagram. Okay, so we have something called cookies, right? And I think most of you already know why we need to move from local storage to cookies. Very, very important. Now these can be interview questions also, right? In local storage, if you ever get any kind of excesses, what will happen, right? Your JS can read the token directly. Okay, so JS can read the token directly. Okay, now if let's say you're using a HTTP only cookie, right? What will happen if you're using HTTP only cookie? Browser is going to send it, but frontend JS can't read it. Okay, now remember, this will not solve all the security problems, but definitely this is much better than directly storing the token in the local storage. So why actually, okay, let's understand this part, that why then we need HTTP only cookie. So this simply improves the resistance to token theft via excesses. So this will be, so I'm just going to do, this will improve resistance to token theft via excesses. Okay, so this will be much better way to put it. Now there are a couple of flags you need to understand whenever we will work with tokens. Okay, so first of all we have HTTP only, so this is first. Now what this actually means, that your JS cannot read cookie, and second will be, this is actually we use for our access or refresh tokens. Let's check this one. So I'm just going to copy this. Let's go here. So HTTP only cookie can JS read. Okay, so you can see that the JavaScript runtime in a browser cannot read, write or delete a cookie that has a HTTP only flag, and this is extremely important. Okay, so you can see, right, this is basically we use for security purposes, right? The main purpose or goal of HTTP cookie is to protect sensitive data like cross-site scripting or XSS attacks. This is the main reason, because if this kind of attacks happens and if you're storing your cookie in a local storage, that is a bad practice. Okay, so that's why you should always use HTTP only cookie. Okay, so this will be one reason. And now let's go back here. Second will be, so you have something called secure. Okay, so this is another flag you need to know. Now this secure, if you are keeping this one as true, so in our case we're going to keep in false, because we'll be for now work with local storage, not local storage, local host. But in prod, what we are going to do, we are going to send our cookie over what? We are going to send our cookie, so we're going to send our cookie over HTTPS, right? HTTPS, right? Now this is we need or required for real prod applications, right? But this is going to fail in your plain HTTP testing. That is fine, but you have to understand these points. So we have HTTP only and then secure. Then we have something called same site, right? If you're keeping this on a strict, now this will be strongest, but it can break flows. So next you have lax. Now lax will be like best default for many of the applications, and then you have something called none, which is actually needed for cross-site frontend and backend. Then you have the max age property. This is like the browser expire time or date that you want to give, and this one should roughly align with your token purpose. Now this is also very important, I wanted to mention this. So should roughly align with token purpose. Okay, so now in our local development, whenever you are going to do, let's say working in localhost, so in that case we're going to keep secure as false, right? And then once we're going to do actual production deployment, we need to change that one to true. Let's say we are using Nginx or HTTP, so in that case we need to use secure will be true. This is very, very important. So this is all about the cookies. Now let's understand two more concepts first, and then what I've done, right, I created 3 or 4 diagram. Each and every diagram is very, very important, so we need to understand each and every step. So first, before that, we also need to understand one more concept, and that is CSRF protection. So what is CSRF? CSRF is cross-site request forgery. Okay, now let's understand this one in a simpler term. Okay, so now consider that normally what happened, right? Your browser, or let's say if your browser, I'm going to put if the browser automatically sends cookies, and let's say there is another site, another malicious site might try to make the victim's browser send a request to your app. So what I mean, let's say if your browser, or if the browser automatically sends cookies, so what is happening, there is another site involved, so another malicious site that might be or might try to make the victims or the targeted browser, victim's browser, send a request to your app. Okay, what will happen, so if this is happens, right, the browser, because browser is doing what, browser is sending the cookies, right? So in this case browser may attach cookies automatically. Very, very important. So browser may attach cookies automatically. Okay, so what will happen, right? So in that case your request may look authenticated, right, because you are sending cookies, right? But even though your front end, so even though your front end doesn't, or maybe even though front end never initiated it. Okay, so what will happen, so let's say if there is another malicious site involved and they try to make the browser send a request to your application, because your browser is automatically sending cookies, so they may attach cookies automatically, and in that case even though your request will look authenticated, that this is an authenticated user, but your front end never initiated that request. Okay, so this is very important. Now there are difference between XSS versus CSRF. Okay, now XSS will be your attacker runs JS in your site. CSRF will be attacker abuses browser trust from another site. Now both are different. Okay, so XSS will be attacker runs JS in your site, and CSRF will be attacker abuses browser trust from another site. Okay, so this is also important. So now in our case what we are going to do, right? So what we'll do, we are going to, our server is going to create a random CSRF token. Okay, and server is going to set that in a readable cookie. So let's say we are going to give any name of that cookie. Front end is going to read that cookie, and front end is going to send that in a header. So let's say we are going to give this one as x something header name on write request. You got it, right? And in that case, what your backend is going to do, backend is going to compare your cookie value and the header value. If they matches, then only we are going to accept. Okay, so now let's see in a simpler way. So for example, let's say this is your browser login form and we are doing a post request, right? And here server is verifying the credentials. So first of all, let's understand all the flows. So first we have our access token, which is short lived, let's say 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So server is going to set your cookie. Browser every time is going to send cookies automatically, as I already mentioned this, and then based on that we are going to get a request. Now for example, let's say this request is going to give you the authenticated user information, right? So in that case you need a cookie, right? Because not all the user can access this particular route, so this is a protected route. So in that case you need a cookie. So here we are going to use our access token. All right, now how the refresh token? Now refresh token is again the same thing, that server is going to verify your credentials. We are going to set the refresh token long lived, for example let's say 7 days, 15 days or 30 days. Here also browser is going to send cookies automatically, and then we are going to do an API call for this particular refresh token, right? So we'll be having a separate API call or API endpoint for this. The CSRF token, what will happen, again we are going to set it in a readable set it in a cookie readable by JS, and front end is going to read these. Okay, so you can see here, right? So front end is going to read these and send a header on write request, right? So you're going to send a header, and based on that we are going to do certain operations. So we need to do the comparison that we are going to do in the or see in the coding, but this is how the normally flow will work. Now let's understand this particular complete flow that I have added. So now see what is happening here. So you have your user, browser and server. Why these things are very important? Because you will be able to understand this one in a picture, so that while doing the implementation it will be easy. So you're doing a post request, right, in this particular endpoint. So we have a /auth login, and we usually do verify credentials. Now remember, in this one there are a lot of process might be involved. For example, let's say we are checking that if the user given proper password or not. So all these things we need to see. But once the verify credentials is successful, so we are going to set a access token which will be short. We are going to set a refresh token which will be long, and based on that we are going to do a login successful. If the login is successful, we are going to get the current authenticated user information, right? Now here you can see that this is just extra flow that I have added, that every time now next time we are going to get our current user information, we are going to verify the access token. How we are going to verify the access token? We have something called JWT. So based on our JWT, we are going to see that if the token is verified or successful, then only we are going to get our current user information. So similarly here for our refresh token, we are going to post this particular request. We are going to verify again we need to verify the refresh token, and then we are going to assign or create a new access token access token cookie. Okay, and for a logout, what we are going to do is simply, remember now what we are doing, we are simply clearing that one from a local storage, but normally we need to clear the cookies. So for a logout we are going to clear the cookies. So this will be another flow. Now let's understand this one. Okay, so now you see what is happening here. So you have your browser, have your server, and this is an attacker site. Now this is hypothetical because this may happen, right? So you need to understand all this. So first what we are simply doing, we are, as I already mentioned, that server is going to create what? A random CSRF token. So that will be server's job, and we are going to set it in a cookie, right? So server is setting it in a cookie. You can see that. Okay, now what we are going to do, right, you need to understand this part here, that whenever there will be fake post from another site, as I already mentioned that it can be from any malicious site. So in that case, how we are going to check it? We need to see two things. Either it can be either there can be missing X CSRF token, That means this attacker actually forgot to add that CSRF token that we actually need to compare, or second scenario will be it can be invalid. So if these two things happen, so what you are going to do, right, you are going to immediately send a 403 forbidden to the attacker side from your server. So how you are going to do that? So your backend is going to do this. So you are going to compare, as I already mentioned, you are going to compare the cookie value and the header value. I hope this is clear. So if both are same, then only, that means if both are same means it is successful. If something goes wrong, let's say if the CSRF token is missing or if it is invalid, we are going to return a forbidden message request to the attacker site or in the response. Okay, so this will be our overall flow of the cookie and how we are going to use CSRF token. So now let's understand one more concept and then we'll move to implementing some of the things, because we've already done quite a few things, right? So now let's understand what is CORS. I think this is also another very important concept. Now remember, one thing is, like, most of the students, very beginner students, right, they confuse that CORS is a backend authentication. It's actually not. CORS is your browser enforced origin policy. So this will be your browser enforced origin policy. So what I mean by this, so that means that your browser is going to block whenever there will be any cross origin front-end calls, and if the browser see that, okay, this particular URL is not whitelisted, I hope this is clear, or not allowed, or this is disallowed, so in that case browser is going to block that request. So I'll do browser blocks disallowed cross origin front-end calls. Okay, so now why actually we need CORS, right, or why actually these CORS things matters. Now see, remember, for now what we are doing, right, in our front-end request we are using cookies, we are using with credentials equal to true. So whenever we are going to use cookies, we need to set that, and also we need we are using CSRF header, so your CORS must be explicit. Now what is wrong in our application now? So if you go to server.js, we're simply doing what? We are simply doing app.use and then CORS. So that means, and you'll see that you will agree, most of the videos that you will see, you'll see that they will directly use something like this. Even I also use in some of my teaching videos, that is fine. But if you're creating a production level application, you need to understand some things, that these CORS is nothing but this is called as open CORS, right? So this is fully open and this is not much secure. Okay, so how you are going to do it? So you need to use something called allow list, right? So you need to use something called allow list, means we are only going to allow these particular URLs only, right? And you can have multiple URLs also, or origins also. And also we need to use credentials, or we need to use credentials equal to true. And also don't use these stars with credentials. Okay, so now what we're going to do, so first of all we have learned 4 things. So we have learned that we need to we don't have to use only single long-lived token, that is a weak or that is insecure. We need something called access token and refresh token. We are going to use cookies, right? HTTP only cookie. We need to use same site. We need to give the properties whether that cookie will be secure or not. So for now this will be secure because we are doing development in localhost, and also we have something called maxage. Then we have something called CSRF, right? These can happen. And also have learned CORS. So these 4 things, now what we're going to do, right, we are going to apply in our current application. Okay, now what are the things that is left? So still you'll see that we are actually using raw password. That is absolutely wrong. We are going to hash the password, that will come later. We also need to implement rate limiting, abuse protection, and account locking. These things are left. We also need to implement our middleware, right? So we don't have any middleware, means any user, any authenticated user can access any route. So we need to understand all these things, right? So that we are going to do later. Also I'm going to show you some of the NoSQL injections. These can happen, all these issues, and how you can write safe queries using Zod. So we are also going to use Zod and those kind of concepts. But first let's implement all these 4 things. in the next part, and then we'll move to the next section. All right, so now we'll start implementing the code. Now before that, I thought that I missed one thing, and that is we should not wait for that password hashing part, right? Instead we should do that password hashing along with these concepts that we are going to do now. So let's understand. So for now, as I already mentioned, that we are doing what? We are not hashing the password, we are directly storing the password in RBAC, which is very wrong. You should never do that, and that is not that much difficult to understand, and I think most of you already know. So what we should do, so every time we are going to register, right? So what will be the flow? So in the register we need to hash the password. Now for this one, either you can use bcrypt, that is very standard, or you can also use, so we are going to use bcrypt, or you can also use argon 2, right? So first of all, we need to hash the password. In login time, what we are going to do, we are going to only, in login time, we will only look up for the user using email only. So what I mean by this, so whenever a particular user will log in, what you usually see, you'll see that if that user is already present in our DB or not, correct? Because now our password is already has password, so we can't check using our password. So we are only going to check the user using our email. If that user is not present, so we'll immediately return and we'll say that okay, you are your username or maybe your email doesn't exist. So first you need to register, then only you can log in. So once we'll do that, then we are going to compare our DB password, which is hash password, with our password that user is going to send from our frontend. Okay, so let's log out. So what I mean by this, so whenever I'm going to log in, so user is going to type a password here, right? So that I'm going to compare using our DB password. Okay, so now with this, what you're going to do, right? So we are going to implement these 5 things one by one. So first, what we are going to do, right? So first we will start with implementing our CORS. So how we are going to do that? So first let's go to our env, right? So we'll go to our env of server, and then I'm going to close everything else and let's start. So I'm just going to add CORS allowed, and let's do this one as origins. Now here, as I already mentioned, that you can add multiple one, right? So for example, let's say I wanted to copy this and now I wanted to pass our front end one. Okay, so I'm just going to do 5173, and here also I can pass my VPS IP, right? So that we are going to do later. So this will be my server IP. So I'm just going to give this one as your server IP. Okay, so now let's save this. So now let's go to a server.ts. So where we are directly using the CORS, or this is actually nothing but this is open CORS. So how you should do it here. So you are going to do something like this. So inside this, first of all, I'm going to take a curly bracket and I'm just going to do here origin, right? And in this origin, so this is going to give you the origin, right? If you hover here, so it's going to give you the origin and it's going to give you a callback. So I'm just going to do origin comma callback. So simply first we'll check if not equal to origin, so you're going to return the callback and you're going to pass the null and we'll pass this will be true, right? Or else first we are going to check that if that origin is present in our env or not, in our environment variables or not. So how we are going to do that? So I'm simply going to do if process dot env dot, so now let's copy this. So you have CORS allowed origins, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do includes, and this will be origin, right? If this origin includes, so in that case, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to return the callback. So this will be null and comma true. Okay, so this will be the first thing that we are going to do. And second, always, because we will start working with cookies, so you're going to pass credentials will be true. So this you are going to pass. So this, now remember, this is only one way. I'm just showing you that okay, this is how you're going to do it. Doesn't mean that this is the best way. This is only one way of doing it. There can be multiple ways. You can create a helper function, and this is just, I'm showing 2 options. There are multiple CORS options you can pass here. Okay, but this will be a good start that you can do. So with this, now what will be your next step? The next step will be, so we'll do step by step. First let's go to a register route, right? And you'll see that how much easier I will do to understand. And I'm just going to minimize this one here. Let's skip it. Okay, let's go to our or let's minimize this one here like this. Okay, this is fine. So now you can see that. Let's go one by one. So what we are doing, we are simply taking our name, email and password from our request.body, and we are simply checking that if existing user user.find1 if this email present, right? If this email is already present, means this user is already registered in our DB. So that means I'm simply returning user already exist, which is correct, right? Now what we are going to do, right? The first step will be need to hash the password. So I'm just going to do hash password, right? And this will be, so first let's install CORS, sorry, not CORS, we need to install bcrypt. Okay, so now I'm just going to import bcrypt from bcrypt. I think we need to install the, why this is, okay, let's use here. So I'll do bcrypt, and here I'm just going to do, oh sorry, we need to take await. So I'll do await bcrypt.hash, and here what we're going to do, right? We'll simply pass password, that which password we want to, sorry, I think we need to, okay, we need to install the types, that's why. So let's install this. Okay, so first we are going to tell that, okay, this password we want to hash, right? This password, that password we are passing from our front end, this password, and then we also need to give a salt. So here I'm just going to give this one as 10. Okay, so this will be your first step. Now what we are going to do, right? Whenever you are going to save the user, we are going to save the hash password. And now this is fine. This you will find in all YouTube videos or whatever videos you're finding, that is correct. But still I wanted to mention this so that, let's say if you're a beginner or you're doing these kind of silly mistakes, you'll ignore doing all of this, right? Don't store the proper plain password in your DB. So with this, I think we don't need anything else here, so you're just going to return. Okay, so this will be our first change that we need. Now in our logging flow, right, we need to change we need to do quite a few things. Okay, now remember this flow that we have discussed. So this one also, you can remember this one also, or maybe better will be this one, that how all these things is happening, how we are going to set our access cookie, access token, refresh token, all these things. So now let's see what is happening in our login now. Okay, so first of all we are getting the email and password, which is correct. We need to get the email and password, and this email and password nothing but, if you go to login, this email and password, and then we are going to click login. So we need to get these two options, right, two values. Now what you're doing, that we're doing a plain query, which is absolutely wrong. You should never do this, right? We are plain query, and also now this will not work. Why? Because we have already stored the hash password, right, not the direct password. So first thing what you're going to do, you're going to do await user.find1, and I'm just going to remove this password. So we are only going to now, so we'll do only check with email, which is correct. All right, and then I'm simply going to do that if the user is not present, here you should always return general reply to the user back, for example invalid credentials, or you can do something like this, invalid email or password. So these things are very, very important, so that let's see if so I'm going to explain a very important thing. This can be little like interesting also, that let's say you're returning that invalid email, or you are sometimes returning invalid password. So if any attacker try to see that or access your website, so they will understand, okay, the email is wrong or the password is wrong. Maybe I'm getting the email correct but the password is wrong, or maybe I'm getting the password correct, the email is wrong. But if you're passing invalid email or password, they will not know that which one is actually invalid. I hope this is clear, right? This is not that much important, but I wanted to mention. Now what we're going to do, right, first of all we need to now match our password. That is the most important part. So which password you're going to match? The password that is stored in your DB with the password that user is typing here, right? So how we are going to do that? So I'm simply going to do const check password, right, and you're going to do await, and I'll do bcrypt dot compare, right? So in this compare you're going to check the password. Now this password is the password you are getting with the user password. So how you're going to get the user password? User password you're going to get from here, because you're finding the user from the DB only. So you're going to pass the user dot password. Okay, so this is what is going to give you the password matches. If this check password is wrong, so that means what, user has given the wrong password again. So in that case what you're going to do, I'm just going to return res.status of 401.json, and let's return a message. So I'm just going to do again invalid email or password. Okay, so now what will be our next step? Next step will be, now we are going to set our cookies. Okay, so for that we are now not going to create a single cookie. That part we already discussed. See, now it will be easier for you to understand, right? So I'm going to now remove this, right? So we need to remove this, and then we are going to create a cookie here. Okay, so first what I'm going to do, right? So let's do one thing. Let's create one folder here. Maybe let's do utils, and I'm just going to do here maybe cookie.ts. Okay, so first I'm going to take, so I'm just going to do here access cookie, and this will be access token. Copy this, and I'm just going to do this one as refresh. So this will be refresh token, and also let's do maybe, okay, we also need one more, right? So we need CSRF token, or let's do cookie. So this will be our CSRF token. Now what I'm going to do, right, one thing we also need to add, let's go to our env, and I'm just going to do here cookie secure, and this will be false for now because we're working in local environment. And also we need to give a cookie same site, and I'm just going to use lax, as I already mentioned that this is normally we use in most of the applications. So now this is done. So what will be our next step? So first I'm going to do const, and let's take cookie secure, and this will be process.env dot, and let's copy this, and I'm also going to take the cookie same site. So this will be process.env dot cookie same site. Okay, save this. So now first of all let's create our cookie options. So I'm just going to do function, and let's do create cookie options, and I'm just going to get a max age property as the input. I'll do number, and here I'm just going to return cookie options. For that we also need to have, or we need to also install our JWT, right? We haven't installed, I think we JWT already there maybe. So JSON web token is there. Okay, so I'm just going to take the cookie options, and these cookie options I'm going to import from our express package. Okay, so we have the cookie options. Let's import this one as type. We also need type of let's do the request. We need type of response, and also I'm just going to take type of next function. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, right, simply we are going to return. So here I'm just going to return HTTP only. See, I already explained all of this, so we're going to keep true. Secure will be our cookie secure, because in localhost it will be true, but in prod it will be in localhost it will be false, my bad. In prod it will be true. Same site, this will be cookie same site, and here I'm just going to give a path, and let's give this one as slash, and also I'm just going to pass the max age property. Alright, so I think this is done. So next, I think we have some error here. Okay, we need to make this one as if this is equal to true. Okay, so for this one what we can do, right, so maybe let's do here, right, so I'm just going to directly we can do here, or maybe let's do one thing. Let's remove this, and I'm just going to take this one as cookie options, and here I'm just going to pass this one as same site, and then I'm just going to simply check that if process.env dot, so we have the cookie same site, right, cookie same site, if this is equal to either strict, or if process.env dot cookie same site, if this is equal to none, or this can be process.env dot cookie same site if this is equal to lax. So if these three options are there, so in that case I'm just going to take the process.env dot cookie same site, or else I'm just going to keep by default as lax. Okay, so I think this is done. So now these will be our options that we need, and also let's create one more, and these we need for our CSRF. So I'm just going to do CSRF cookie options. So here I'm just going to make this one as false. Secure will be cookie secure, same side, path and max age same. So now what we are going to do, right, we need to create 2 cookies for now, 3 cookies we need to do. So one will be our actual auth cookie, second will be to clear our cookies, and third will be to manage our CSRF token. Okay, before that we also need to create our token. So now I'm just going to do here JWT dot ts. Okay, so here we are going to create 3 token. One will be our access token, refresh token, and the CSRF token. And you can also check all the things I've already mentioned here, that we need to set our access token, right, which will be short-lived, refresh token which will be long-lived, and these will be our CSRF, which also will be readable by our JS, which we are going to send from our front end. So first I'm just going to import JWT from JSON web token. Also let's import crypto from node crypto package. Okay, so here let's do export function, and I'll do create access token, and here I'm just going to do, I'm going to get the user ID. So based on the user ID I'm going to create the token, and I'm also going to take the role, which is also very important. So here I'm just going to do return, so I'll do jwt.sign. I'm doing little fast because these things you'll find in other videos also, and some of you already know all of this. User ID, so you're going to pass role, and here I'm just going to give a type. So let's give the type as access. Okay, so that we can actually understand. Then what we need to do, we need to do process.env dot, and now let's go to our env and let's take our access token secret, which we are going to create later. So for now I'm just going to give access token secret. Okay, also we need our refresh token secret, so I'll do refresh token secret. Okay, so now let's go here, and what are you going to do, right, so you're going to pass the access token secret, and here, or else let's give a value here, access secret, and we need to give one more property which will be expire scene, which is very important. So I'm just going to give this one as 15 minutes. Okay, so for our access token. Now let's copy this, paste it here, so this will be our refresh token. So refresh token, again the same thing, only change will be these will become now refresh, and this will be your refresh token secret, and here I'm just going to do 7 days. Okay, save this, and then we are going to do one more, which will be export function, and I'll do create CSRF token, and here we can use the crypto package. So I'm just going to do return crypto dot random bytes. Let's take a 32, and then I'm just going to do 2 string and pass this one as hex. That's it. Okay, so these 3 token that we need. So now we are going to create our cookies. Okay, so first we need to create our auth cookie. So whenever user is going to logged in, so here we are going to create all these. So first what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to do export function, and I'll do set auth cookies, and I'm just going to do res, so this will become our response. I'm also going to take the user ID, which will be string, and also let's take the role, which also will be string. Inside this, first we need to do what, we need to create our access token, refresh token, CSRF token. So I'm just going to do const access token, and this will be create access token. What you need to pass here, user ID, so you're going to pass the user ID and the role. Copy this and then paste it here 2 more times. So this will become your refresh token, and you're going to call create refresh token, and here also you need the user ID and the role. And CSRF token you can directly call here, because we are creating using what, using our crypto package. So I'm just going to do create CSRF token, and this will become your CSRF token. Okay, so I think this is done. So now let's create a max age. So I'm just going to do access max age. Let's keep this on as 15 into 60 into 1000 and copy this, and let's do refresh max age. And here I'm just going to do this one as, so here 1 minute, okay, we need to pass in create cookie options, we are passing that one, right? Let me just check. Create cookie options max age. Okay, so here I'm just going to give this one as 7 days. So what I'm going to do 7 into 24 into 60 into 60 into 1000. So now I'm just going to do response, because this is our response dot cookie. Here what you're going to pass, right, you need to pass the name. So name will be our access cookie. Okay, then what you're going to pass, you're going to pass the actual value, right? So you can see that we'll be having the value, if you see name, value and options. So value will be your access token, and then what will be the options? So I'm just going to do create cookie options. Okay, and here what you're going to pass, you're going to pass the access max age, very important, because you're setting the access token here. Okay, then same thing, we'll copy this first. Let me save this and paste this, and I'm just going to do this one as now refresh cookie. This will become refresh token, and this will be create cookie options only, but in this access max age you're going to pass the refresh max age. That's it. And then I'm just going to copy this, paste it here, and this will be my CSRF cookie, and this will be my CSRF token, and here I'm just going to do create CSRF cookie options, and here I'm just going to pass the refresh max age only. Okay, so this will be our set auth cookies, which is going to set our auth cookies. Now for clearing the auth cookies, it will be simple. So let's create now only. So I'm just going to do export function, and I'll do clear auth cookies. I'll do res, this will be response. So first I'm just going to do const, let's do clear options, and I'm just going to pass the cookie options. So here what I'll do, I'm just going to pass the secure, which will be cookie secure. I'm going to pass the same site, which will be cookie same site, and I'm going to path, which will be slash. And now what you need to clear, 3 things: access token, access cookie, refresh cookie, and the CSRF cookie. All 3 you need to clear. So you'll do res.clear cookie, and you have all the name, right, you've given here. So you're going to clear the access cookie, and you're going to pass the clear options, very important, clear options. Copy this, and this will become refresh cookie clear options, and then you'll have CSRF cookie clear options. That's it. So this will clear all the cookies, right? Then we also going to check one more method, or let's create one more method here, where you remember, as I already mentioned, one thing that, let's go to this part. See, here we are going to check that if there is a missing or invalid, so you need to first see, or you need to check that whether that CSRF token is present or not in the headers. So we are going to pass that in the headers, right? So let's say we are going to pass this property here. So for that we are going to create one more function here. So I'm just going to do export function, and I'm just going to take this one as require CSRF, and let's pass the request we already have here. Okay, then we have the response, which will be response, and then we have the next, which will be our next function. So first I'm going to get the CSRF cookie. So this will be request dot cookies, and here you're going to pass the CSRF cookie. So this is going to give you the value first. Then what will be the important part, you're going to now check that if that is present in your headers or not. So I'm just going to do const CSRF header. So I'll do request dot header, and what will be the value? So let's give this one as x hyphen CSRF hyphen token. So this is what we are going to pass from our front end side. So now I'm just going to do, if the CSRF cookie, or if this is CSRF header, if this is not present, or if there is not a match, I already mentioned, right? Let's see where I mentioned that part. I think I mentioned here, right? Some places I mentioned. maybe I explained that I didn't write. So I mentioned, right, that we are going to actually verify both the cookies, right, that cookies that we have stored and the one that we are going to send. If there is no match, so in that case what we are going to do, we are going to return invalid CSRF token. So in this case I'm just going to do if the CSRF cookie not equals CSRF header, so here I'm just going to return a 403, remember. So I'm just going to do res.status 403.json and let's return a message of invalid CSRF token. If this is not the case, always try to remember and pass the next middleware, or else your response will be stuck. Okay, so this is all the things that we need. So now what will be our next step? Now let's go to our login. So once we check the password, so what are you going to do right here? Now here we are going to set our cookies. So first I'm going to do set auth cookies. So here I'm going to pass the response. What are you going to pass? We're going to pass the user ID and the role. So user ID will be your string of, so you have your user, so this user dot ID, okay, and then you're going to pass the user dot role. That's it. So this is going to set your auth cookies, and at the end what we are going to return, we are going to return login success, and then we are not going to return this token again, and then I'm just going to return all the other information. That's it. Okay, so this will be a proper login flow and the register flow. I hope this is clear. All right, so we have completed the register and the login flow, right? So now what we need to do, right, you also need to work on getting the current user information, right? So once the user will be authenticated, we need to extract that. So based on the current flow, we need to make some changes, right? But before that, let's understand one more important concept, and that is the concept of RBAC, or role-based access control, and ownership checks. So now remember, if you watch other videos, right, normally you will see that mainly we have these two concepts only. So we have something called authentication, authorization, but there is something we also have ownership, right? Now remember, these all three things are different. Okay, so you have authentication, authorization, ownership. Authentication is going to tell that who you are, simply. So how you are going to tell? So your authentication is going to tell that who you are, and we are going to see this based on our access token, right? Then we have something called authorization, right? So we have authorization, and authorization is what we are going to understand based on that what actually this user is. This user is a user, or this user is admin. Ownership is different, right? So what is actually ownership? Now we will not go into much details, but I just wanted to give you some information that, let's say, even if you're authenticated, does this resource belongs to you? I hope this is clear, right? So for example, let's say one user, or let's say you have you are admin, correct? Now even if you're admin, should you change some other user name? I hope this is clear, right? So let's say one user name is Sangam. Can admin change this user name to Sangam to something else, right? In normal cases it should not, right? So this is where ownership comes into picture. Now this is just, I'm giving some basic idea, but there can be some requirements based on the project that you're building, right? It depends, but this is normally what usually happens, right? The user should be able to change its username or some basic information. Okay, so then you have three things. So we have authentication, authorization, and ownership, right? So now let's see how we are going to do that. Before that, we also need to create now our middleware. Now this part is very important. In other videos also you are going to see the exact same thing. Still you need to understand this particular part properly. So first, what are you going to do, right? So let's create our middleware, and here I'm just going to do here ts, and first what I'm going to do, right, I'm just going to do export function, and let's do require access auth, and here I'm just going to take the request, and this request will be our authenticated request. So for this, what I'll do, right, so we already have the utils, so let's create a types.ts folder. Now here what I'm going to do, right, simply first let's import type request from express, and I'm just going to do export type, and I'll do auth token payload, and this will be, so I'm just going to take a user ID, this will be string. I want to take a role, this also will be string, And also I'm just going to take type. Remember, we have taken two type. One will be access, or one can be refresh. Okay. And now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do export type authenticated request, and this will be your request that you have, and I'm going to add this in our request object. So I'm just going to do auth user, and here I'm just going to pass user ID, which will be string, and also we're going to pass the role, which will be string. Okay. So now let's go here. So here, instead of passing the normal request, we are going to pass the authenticated request. Then we have response. So we have response from our express, and we also have our next, which is our next function. So now what are you going to do, right? Simply, so I'm going to take try, and let's take a catch. So I'm just going to return race.status of 401.json, and I'm just going to do message, and this will be unauthorized, right? So let's do unauth user info, something like that. And in this try, what we are going to do first, so first we need to get our access token, so that will be our first step. So I'm just going to take the access token, and this will be request.cookies, and we have the access cookie, right? So let me just check. So the cookie, and then we have the access cookie, which will be this access token. Okay. So I'm just going to do if not equal to access token, I'm just going to return unauthorized. So let's return unauthorized. Okay. So I think this is done. What else? So now we are going to do decode. So we need to decode the token. So I'm just going to do JWT. So let's import JWT, and then I'm just going to do JWT.verify, and here we are going to pass the access token. So we need to check based on access token, and do process.env dot, so you have the access token secret, right? So you have the access token secret. Okay. And now what I'm going to do, right here, we also need to pass, I think this two is fine, as, and then we have our auth token payload, this, because at the end, once the decode will be done, so we're going to get the user ID, role, and the type. Why? Because while setting this, we have actually set the same. If you go here, right, we have the type access and the type refresh. So I'm just going to do auth token payload. Okay. And now I'm just going to simply do that if, very important, if the decoded dot type if not equal to access, right? So in that case also I'm again going to return unauthorized. I hope this is clear. And now what we're going to do, right, we're going to put the auth user information in our request object, because we have already typed it, right? So we have this type. So now here what we are going to do, simply we are going to take the user ID, and this user ID will be decoded dot user ID, and then you're going to add the role, which will be decoded dot role. That's it. And now this is not yet done until unless you're going to call the next method. Okay. So this will be our one middleware, which is going to check that if the user is an authenticated user or not. Second will be that how we are going to check that if the user is an admin user or normal user. So it's like you have multiple routes, and not every routes can be accessed by every user, right? So admin user can only access admin routes, normal user can access only normal user routes. So if there is a normal user and try to access admin routes, so you should restrict that particular user to access those routes, right? So you need one more middleware. So here what I'm going to do, simply I'll create one more function. I'm doing little first because these things you've already find in other videos also, and I'm guessing you already know some of the things. If you don't, I already have a dedicated video on Node.js authentication and authorization. That is a different things. Again, it is almost same, but it's much more detailed. You can check that video. So here what I'm going to pass, I'm going to pass the request, which will be authenticated. We have authenticated request, response, which will be response, and then you have the next, which will be our next function. And here what I'm going to do, right, so I'm simply going to check if the request dot user Now we have request.auth user. I'll do if not equal to request.auth user, or if request.auth user dot role if not equal to the role that we have here. So in that case I'm going to return a forbidden request. So in that case I'm just going to return, so this will be 403 and message will be forbidden, or you don't have access, forbidden, or you do not have access to this route. Okay, save this, and then if this is not the case, you're going to call the next middleware. So these two middleware that we need. So now what are you going to do, right? We need to implement our current user information route. So we'll go to routes, we have these, right? So now this will change. First of all, this will be now an authenticated route, right? Means only auth user can access this route. So how we are going to do that? To do this, so you have something called a middleware access, right? So we had the middleware chaining, that middleware A, B and C. Until unless you'll pass this middleware, you can't access the next middleware or next request. The same thing, we are going to protect this route. So this will be a protected route. So how we are going to do that? So you're going to use the require access auth, right? So this is going to tell that, okay, this route is now authenticated. Until unless you will pass this middleware, you can't go inside of this. Okay, so you're going to give comma, and then here request will become authenticated request and response. And now what you're going to do, right? So let's remove this. I'm just going to show you. So in this try, first of all, I'm going to take the user. So I'll do const user will be await. So you have the user model, and I'll do find by ID, and here you're going to pass the user ID. How you're going to get? You're going to get from here. Why? Because if you go here, we're attaching the auth user information in our request object. So in this request object, we will be getting request dot auth user, right, dot user ID, right? And now what I'm going to do, right, I'll do a select. So what select is nothing but we are going to actually return some of the specific things. For example, we don't want to return the password to the user. Okay, so how we are going to do that? So here you'll simply take one, I'm going to do safe user select option get, let's do get or extract safe user select options. And here what I'm going to do, right, I'm going to do minus password, means I don't want to return the password. I hope this is clear. Now these things, minor things are very important, right? So now what you're going to do, simply go here, and then you can do select, and you can pass that extract safe user select. So it's going to return the other information which is not present, so it's not going to return the password. And then I'm just going to do, if the user is not found, so we're going to return a raise.status of 404 then .json. And here what I'm going to do, so I'm going to return a message, and this will be user not found, or else I'm simply going to return the raise.json, and then I'm going to return the user information. Okay, so this is how you can protect routes, and this is how you are going to only return the options that you need. So now we need one more here. Let's quickly create, and that will be our logout. Why? Because till this time we are actually managing the logout from our client side, or we are just deleting the local storage token. That is not the best option. So that means what you need to do, you need to clear the cookies. So I'm just going to do a router.post, and let's do a logout. And you might be thinking that how I'm doing these things a little fast, because I've done multiple times. If you're a beginner, or let's say try to understand all these things, take your time. And I think most of you actually, some of you actually commented that I actually researched some of the official documentation and learned from ChatGPT along with this video, and I will be very happy, because that is exactly what I want. Because you can't learn everything by watching a single video. You have to watch the video, because even learning from ChatGPT also is difficult, right? You can't learn everything from ChatGPT, I can guarantee, right? Even if you ask, if you're a beginner, you don't know what to search, what to learn in which sequence, that is where tutorials becomes very important. But with the tutorial, you also need to make use of the other tools that are available now. Then only you'll be able to learn more things, those things that I'm not covering in this particular video. So here what you're going to pass, you're going to pass the require CSRF. Okay, so this one we have created, and here what I'm going to do, right, I'm just going to take request response. You just have to just clear the auth cookies, that's it, and then you have to pass the response. So you're going to pass the response, so it's going to clear, and then that's it. You just have to return res.json and return message will be logout success. Okay, so that's it. So these all the methods for now we need. So I think with this you've learned already quite a few things, right? The best practices, that how we are going to handle authentication or security based practices. Still there are a lot of things we need to do, but before that we need to make some changes now in our client side. Okay, so first let's do one thing. Let's go to our client side, and let me just check one thing. I think we have the Axios already, so we'll go to client side, go to source, and maybe let's do one thing. Let's create one api.ts file. Okay, let's close this, and here what I'm going to do, right, or maybe let's do one thing. I'm just going to let's write it. Okay, I think it will not take that much time. So first I'm going to take the Axios, then I'm going to take the API base URL. So I'm just going to do API base URL, and this will be import.meta.env, and then we have the base URL, right? So it will be wait API URL. So you're going to take wait API URL. Now I'm just going to give a small check that if API base URL is not present, so I'm just going to throw new error, and I'm going to do wait API URL is missing. So now what I'm going to do, right, so I'm going to create an API, and this will be axios.create, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass the base URL, which will be API base URL, and you have to pass with credentials will be true, because we are using cookies, right? We are using tokens. So here what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to do api.interceptors.request.use, and here we are going to have the config. First of all, we are going to take that what kind of method that we are using. Okay, so first I'm going to do const method, and this will be, so you're going to get config dot method, or else I'm just going to take get, and I'm just going to do it to this will be uppercase. Okay, now very important part that you need to do here. If, see what you're doing, if this is post comma put comma, this will be patch, right, or this is delete, means it's write operations, all are write operations, very important. If this is the case, and if this includes, what I'm doing wrong, man, something we're doing wrong. Oh, it will be here, dot includes the current method. If this is the case, so in that case what we need, can you guess? We need our CSRF token. Okay, so here you are going to do get cookie. So let's do one thing, let's create one simple function here. So maybe let's do here, so I'm just going to do function get cookie, and here I'm just going to do name, so I'll do string, and here I'm just going to do const cookie. So this will be document dot cookies, no, I think document dot cookie dot split, and I'm going to split with this, and then I'm just going to do find item, and here I'll do item dot starts with, and here let's take colon, so it start with name equals. Okay, okay, so I think this is fine. And now what I'm going to do, right, I'm just going to return cookie, then I'll do decode URI component, I'll do cookie dot split with equals, and I'll take the first element. These are normal concept, you can also find all of this. If you're getting any confusion, just search all this part, right, and see what is happening here. I'm just going to do explain. See, this is standard way to extract specific cookie value by name using client-side JavaScript concept. So we have something like user equal to John, then you are going to split it and then take the value, something like that. Okay, so that is the reason we are doing this line. Okay, so now what we are going to do simply, so you're going to take the token here, so I'm just going to do get cookie, And what is the name that we have given? Let me just check. CSRF token. So we are going to pass the CSRF token, right? So if the CSRF token is present, so I need to add this in my headers. So I'm just going to do headers, and this will be config.headers, or else this will be empty. And then I'm just going to do config.headers of, and then I'm going to pass x-csrf-token, and this will be equal to CSRF token. Okay, and then at the end I'm just going to return the config. Okay, and then what I'll do, so let's do export default API. That's it. And these token, and if you see, just search here, so we are using here, right? We are extracting this token, right? Or else we are going to return invalid CSRF token. So this is how we are going to put this. So now with this, the API is completed. So what we are going to do, right, we need to change some logic in our login and register file. Then only we'll be able to test it, that whether the cookie actually getting saved, right? And also we need to check that all the 3 cookies are getting stored in the cookie or not. So let's see how we are going to do that in the next. All right, so now let's start with first our register page. Okay, so first thing what we are going to do right here, instead of calling this, now what we can do, directly we can call our API these particular utils that we have created, right? So we can remove this, and I'll do API dot post, and here what we are going to do, simply we will call our auth/register, and here we are going to pass the 3 things. So we have our name, then we have our email, and then we have our password. So this will be the first change that we need. Second, we need to also change some logic in our login page. So let's go to our login page again. So here what you're going to do, right? So okay, so here we can simply call this, let's remove this, we'll do API we need to import dot post, and this will be /auth/login, and here we are going to pass the email and password. Okay, so these 2 things we are going to pass here. So now let's save here, and now also we need to go to our home page, and now here we need to do some changes, right? Because we need to call the current user information. So first what we will do, so we don't need this logic now, so I'm just going to remove this from here, this logic, and then I'm going to take use effect only, and let's do something like load me. Okay, and let's create this function. So I'll do async function, and I'll do load me, and here I'm just going to take a try catch, and here I'm just going to do set user will be null, and in the try you can simply do const res, and this will be API dot get, and here what we are going to pass, right, also we need to do await API.get, and here we're going to pass /auth/me. And now what we can do, simply we just do set user will be res.data. Okay, so now we can test it. Before that, let's close everything else, and we need to do one more change, because now we are working with cookies, so we need to go to our backend. Let's go to our server.ts, and here now we need to use our cookie parser. Okay, so we need to install cookie parser, or else it will not work. So let's clear this, and I'll do npm install cookie parser. Okay, so now let's import this. I'm just going to do import, let's do cookie parser from, so I'll do cookie parser, and then we'll just use this here. So I'll do app.use, and what you're going to do, simply, so I'll just do cookie parser. So now let's save this. Okay, we're getting, okay, maybe we need to install the types, sorry. So let's install the types also. Okay, so save this. Now we are going to test it. Okay, so let's go to our register. So we'll start from beginning, and I'm just going to do john2 on user, and then let's do this one as john2@gmail.com, and then I'll do 1 2 3 4 5 6 register, and now let's log in. So I'll do John 2 and I'll do 1 2 3 4 5 6 and try to log in. Fantastic. So now we have our user. Go to our application, we have access token, CSRF token, refresh token, and if you go to network, go to this request, and you can see that we are passing the access token as well as the CSRF token, right? So both the things we are passing, and based on that it's going to do the check, right? So you can see that it's working fine. Awesome. So with this, so I think now what we have learned so far, so let's understand. So you understand that what is why actually we need cookies. First of all, the types of token, access token, refresh token, CSRF, right? What is the difference between XSS and versus CSRF type of attacks? CORS, RBAC means role-based access control, that we are going to do little more in the next part. But before that, these will give you a very proper idea, I will say, that how you can work with all those things, right? Now here one more route that we need to create, and that will be our refresh route, right? So we need to have implement our refresh token logic. So let's quickly create that also. So I'll just go to our routes and maybe let's create it here. So I'm just going to do router dot post, and I'm just going to do this one as refresh. And here for refresh we need required CSRF. This is also important. So I'll do async. So I'll do request response, and let's use here try catch, right? So here what we can do, simply we'll return later. First let's take our refresh token. So I'm just going to do refresh token, and this will be request dot cookies dot. So you have your refresh token. So let me just check the name, right? So you have refresh token. So now first of all I'm going to check that if refresh token is not present, so we are going to return res.json 401.json, and then I'm just going to do message, and I'll do no refresh token. So now after this, what you're going to do, first you need to verify. Okay, so first you'll do const, you'll do decoded, and I'll do JWT dot verify. How you're going to verify? So have your refresh token, and then we have our process.env dot refresh token secret, right? So these we need to check, and then what you're going to pass, you're going to pass as auth token payload. Okay, so this is going to give you the decoded information. So now first check what you need to check. First you need to check if this decoded, very important, because we have two types. So I'll do type. If this is not equal to refresh, so in that case also you're going to return invalid token type. I hope this is clear. Copy this, paste it here. So I'll do invalid refresh token type provided. Okay, so now if this is not the case, so now what we are going to do, so now we'll set our auth cookie. So we'll set auth cookies. So you're going to pass the response, we'll pass the decoded.user ID, and then you're going to pass the role. So we'll do decoded. So let's give this one as decoded user maybe, right? So we'll do decoded user, and this will be user ID, and this will be dot role. And then what is happening here, string is video. Let's see what we have used in the type. See, that is the reason, that's why. Okay, so now, so this will be decoded user dot role, and then we are going to return res.json, and here we are going to do message, and this will be token refreshed. And in the catch you can simply return something like 401 only. So I'm just going to copy this, and here we'll return that. So I'm just going to do refresh failed. That's it. So this is what you need for your refresh token logic. So now what are the things that we need to learn, or what is the things that is left? So first of all, we are going to now understand that how you can work with rate limiting. That is very important. Abuse protection and account locking. So I'm going to give you some of the information. We also need to understand some of the NoSQL injection related things, right? Because we are using MongoDB, so I'm going to give you some of the information. Second, how you can work with express hardening and how you can safe errors. Safe error means how you're going to do proper check, and based on that you're going to return response. So these all are best practices, and at the end we are going to finish with how we are going to manage env variables properly, because most of the issues can come from your managing of your env variables. So let's see how we are going to do that in the next part. All right, so now let's understand some quite a few concepts we need to understand now. Okay, so I've also created some of the flows to understand all those concepts simple way. So first will be that we have something called rate limiting, right? We have abuse protection, account locking. Also we are going to understand that how you usually should manage your env variables. So first of all, you need to understand that whenever I'm talking about rate limiting, right, let me just change this one to, so here whenever I'm talking about rate limiting, so rate limiting is not just anti-spam. So this is what you need to understand. Now whenever I'm talking about any security related things, rate limiting is about reducing the speed of abuse. So rate limiting will be is about reducing the speed of abuse. Very important whenever you're creating any kind of SaaS application, whenever security matters more. For example, let's say something related to credentials, right? Brute force, or maybe brute force login attempts, right? You can easily understand that if someone try to log in multiple times, then you have something called refresh token hammering. Or there can be, let's say someone try to scrap your API. So see, there are a lot of things, but try to understand rate limiting will be just reducing the speed of the abuse of your APIs, right? Or your application. Now here one layer is not enough, but what you need, right, you need two type of rate limiting. This is what I will suggest whenever you're creating, let's say any SaaS, or maybe let's say you want to creating your project for your final year, you are in college and you want to showcase something very interesting. So in that case you can do IP level rate limiting, right? So you have something called IP level rate limiting, and you also have account level locking. Now both can be used combined in application, right? IP level rate limiting will be, or this basically slows the repeated request from one client IP. Very important. So IP level rate limiting will be, this is going to slows down the repeated request, you can note it down, from one client IP. Okay. And what is account level locking? Account level locking means this is going to handle your targeted abuse against one known account. Okay. So this will be, for example, let's say there is an attacker, and attacker keeps trying or retrying from the same location or within the same IP budget. Still you will try to, you will log that user account. If for example, let's say that user is trying multiple times using wrong credentials, right? So in that case you can log that particular user for some time. So I'm just giving example. So you have IP level rate limiting and account level locking. Why you need both? Now there is a reason. See, if you only use IP level rate limiting, so let's say you're only using that, your attacker can still focus on one account. Just note it down. Your attacker can still focus on a particular account until the IP bucket fills up. Okay. And if you only use account level locking, so what attackers can do, attacker can still use or flood your API multiple times. So the best structure will be your rate limits protect your infrastructure, account lock is going to protect your account, user account, right? So it will be like this. So rate limit is going to protect your infra, and account lock is going to protect the user account. Okay, so this will be two type of rate limiting. So you're going to use express rate limit for this. I'm going to show you that, but it's not about doing the coding. You understand what I mean by this. The main idea of this doing this video is not coding, right? Or you can find all this whatever you have done in other videos also, right? If you try multiple videos, you will get you will get all of this. The idea is that to understand the concept, that how these things are working, which project you are going to apply which concept, that is the most important part. Maybe let's say you're creating two projects. In one project security matters much more, in other project security doesn't matter. So based on that you are going to implement all this. Like, it's not like you will learn all this concept and you'll go blindly apply everything in every project. It's should not work like that. So this is all about the rate limiting. Then you have something called, there can be NoSQL injection can happen. So whenever you will work with MongoDB, right, MongoDB is what? MongoDB's queries are JavaScript objects, right? But here, let's say these JavaScript objects or queries means raw request data can become dangerous if you pass directly into query filters. Now I'm going to give you a very simple example. Okay, now let's say you are using something like this. I'm just going to do const user and you'll do await, right? I'm just not writing full. So you have a user model and you'll do find one and you'll pass directly. Remember, very important, request.body. And you notice what I'm doing, I'm passing the raw request directly in the query. Now this is very dangerous, right? You don't know what actually is there here. Okay, same thing will be, let's say you're doing the same thing. If I do here, maybe let's const filters and you'll do user.find and you'll do request.query. You should never do this. You should never do this. So what will happen if the user in this particular one sends something like this? So he sends in the query that we have an email, right? And here we are going to pass a property here, something like this, that this will be, email will be null, and same thing, password is null. So then your app is doing what? App is no longer doing a normal email and password lookup, right? It is now accepting Mongo operators from the attackers or whoever is trying to access this. So what will be the safe method here, right? The safe method or process involves the quite a few steps you need to do here. First of all, you should always validate the input request, right? Very important. So validate input safe first. This is the first step. Then you should force the expected primitives types. Let's say you have like strings, you should force all those. Build the database query yourself. Very important, right? So build the DB or database filter yourself based on condition, whatever you are doing, right? And only include, this is also very important, allowed fields, right? Only those fields you need to query your data to your DB. These things are very important. See, until unless you'll face real life problem, right, you'll not understand what I'm like telling. Some of you maybe you'll understand that what I'm talking about. Let's say you are creating a facet filters, right? You're creating facet filters and you are actually querying with every field, whatever is user sending from the client side. That is wrong. If you are doing a filter based on category, price or brand, you should only pass those fields only. I hope this is clear, right? So these things are very important. Even these things are like not, people will not take that much seriously. But for example, I'll give you one example. My ACEDEVHUB, you know, right, my website ACEDEVHUB. So the way I've implemented that logic, right, you'll see that a lot of conditions, not conditions means the checks and everything will be there in that. Although it's not completed yet, it's the revamp is in progress, but this is what I'm talking about, that whenever you're working with DB queries, right, DB queries, you should be very careful. Even if you're creating, let's say, your personal portfolio or whatever, there can be attackers. They can easily like they can attack your DB based on these kind of conditions, that whatever I mentioned there. So validating your input safe is very important. You should never ignore this. So this is all about this part. And second, I wanted to mention about the express, some of the express hardening you should remember. Now these parts, whatever I'm going to discuss, this is not only about your business logic, right? This is about reducing unnecessary exposure at the HTTP layer also. So for example, let's say the best process here will be, you should use helmet, right? Use helmet for what? For your security header. So this will be the first thing, use helmet. Second will be disable. So in Express there is a property called X powered by, so you should disable this property, right? And you should also limit the request body size based on your project requirement, right? It depends. I'm just giving example. Now what I'm talking about, this X powered by, if you're working with Express, let's search X powered by in Express and security issues. Okay, so it's in Express it is enabled by default and identifies as the server as being powered by Express, right? While it has no functional impact on how browser process, it presents a security risk by adding in fingerprinting. Okay, means you should actually disable this. Why? Because I already mentioned that this will be enabled by default, and this header is a small information leakage, right? It's not that much huge security issue, but it is, so you can mention, right, it's a unnecessary fingerprinting. Okay, so how you're going to do this, you'll simply just do app.disable x powered by. Okay, so let's see if I just copy this, and where we are going to do this, so we need to do this in our main server.js file, and where you have to do it, so let's go here, and let's say if I go, okay, let's do it here. Okay, that's it. So this is going to disable this particular property here. Okay, so this is what you have to remember. What else? I think we have discussed all the things. Now let's understand the env related things, then we'll start implementing some of the more code, that how you're going to manage env variables or configs, which is one of the most important part. I will say it's very, very important, right? And believe me or not, a lot of security issues are really related to configs, and I've seen working in past in prod applications also. Either it can be security issues, or maybe sometimes you miss some of the config and something can break, right? So first one will be that if you're using weak fallback secrets. So what I mean by weak fallback secrets, so let's say fallback is nothing but where we are using that part. Let me just check. I think we are not using any place here, but what I mean by this, right, let me just quickly check. No, I don't think we are using anywhere. So what I mean by this, let's say you are using a env variable, right? So I'll do process.env.something, and then you're giving or, and then you're giving a default value. You're getting, right? So these fallback values, now let's say this env variable is very sensitive information, so you should never give a default value in this case. So this is what I'm talking about. If you're using some weak fallback secrets, so you should avoid this. So do weak fallback secrets, right? This is what I already mentioned, the missing required env values. So this can easily break something also. This can easily break things, right? Now one more thing I also need to mention here, and that is you should be very, very careful when you have any sensitive secrets, right? You should never exposed in your client bundle. I want to mention this point multiple times. So what I mean by this, if you see in our client side, right, because we are using Vite, that is fine. Whatever you are using doesn't matter. Even if you are using Vue or Angular or let's say Next.js, you see whenever we'll start with something like Vite, right? So what I mean by this, so this means Vite is going to expose this variable to the client side, right, using this import.meta.env, right? And the doc, if you go to the doc, right, they explicitly mention that whenever you have any kind of variable, right, which has a Vite prefix, right, that is going to be exposed in the client bundle, and these variables should not contain any kind of sensitive information like API keys or secret. Maybe let's say you do Vite API key, I'm just giving, and you must be dumb like, sorry to say, but I have seen that some people actually use that like this, and you're using some API key here. These will be exposed in your client bundle. Similarly with your Next.js, if you do something like Next public or something, right, so it will be also exposed. So these things you should be very, very careful. Okay, and I don't think, okay, this part I have already mentioned, right, that you should never use the fallback secret. So this is what I'm talking about. So we'll do process.env.something, and let's say do here access secret, right? Maybe I've used this some places, I need to check this, but I'm just explaining all of this. So these you should not use all of this. So how you're going to then do or handle environment variables clean way, so this process you need to follow. So first will be load env once, validate required env once. Then also what you can do, right, this validate means you can use something like Zod also. So you can create a env file, and then you can use that. Also in that file also you should be very, very careful. So I'm going to show you that what I mean by this. And then you should have one particular object and use that particular object everywhere, use the same object. So this will be a cleaner way. Okay, so this is what all the things that I wanted to mention. Now we need to do some code changes. Okay, so let's see how we are going to do that. But before that, please don't skip. I'm going to explain one very important part. Okay, I think till this part we have discussed. Okay, let's see this flow. Okay, So here you can see that I want to explain the rate limiting part. So whenever client is going to hit this particular login endpoint, right, what will happen? We are going to have a rate limiter logic. If this is blocked, so you're going to return a 4 to 9 with too many requests. Now this, I'm talking about only login endpoint. This can be applicable to any endpoint, whatever application that you are creating based on your requirement. If this is allowed, so it's going to validate the input first. I already mentioned. So I'm just giving an example that it's going to find the account by email. If the account is locked, right, again, try again later, right? If that account is not locked, you're going to check and validate the password. If it is wrong, again increment the failed attempts. You're getting the flow. So if they're giving multiple times wrong API, for not wrong API, wrong information, right? So let's say one time password wrong, second time also it is wrong, third time wrong, fourth wrong, fifth time also it is wrong. So now you're going to block it. So whenever it's going to reach the threshold, so you're going to yes, so you're going to set a lock. If no, then you're going to return a 401. Very important, right? If this is correct, so you're going to reset the attempts. Oh, now the user has given proper password, so I'm going to reset the attempts and clear the lock, and then login will be successful. So this is a best explanation that you should follow for anything that you're building. It's not about only the login, but any flow you can fit this on. I hope this is clear, right? And I think one more I wanted to explain. Let me just check. Now I think this part we have already done. So this is about the validation, right? That how you are going to validate your request bodies. So whenever you're going to get any kind of request bodies, right, I already mentioned that you need to validate shape and types. If it is valid, no, so you're going to return 400. Remember, these codes are actually important. You see, we have 200, 201, 400, 403, 429, all these things, right? You should know that which code you should use in which condition. If it is yes, so you're going to build the safe filter manually. You're going to run the Mongo with the allow listed fields only. This part is important, and at the end you're going to return the result. Okay, so this is all the things that I wanted to explain. Now with this, let's move to the next one. So you're going to run some of the code implementation in our current code, and with this part will be complete. All right, so now let's start the implementation, whatever we have learned so far. Okay, so first what I'll do, right, so let's go to our utils, and I'm just going to first create a schema file .ts, and also let's create a helper files. So in the schema, we are going to manage all the schemas that we have, and for this one I've already created this. So let me just copy this. So I think I've copied till this part, and then let's paste it here. So let me explain. So first we'll install Zod. So I'm just not writing all of these, it's going to take a lot of time unnecessarily. So let's install Zod first. So here we are doing nothing, we are simply creating the schema for each and every request that we are going to get, right? So for example, in the registered schema, we know that from the front end side we are going to get a name with a string and all the properties, that this name should be minimal 2, max this will be 50, same this will be for email, password, this is our login schema for email and password. This is our user ID params schema, that whenever we need to use anything related to user ID, so you're going to use this, and this will be our list users query schema, so that I'm going to show you later. Okay, so this is nothing but how we are going to create the schemas, right? Now consider that you are creating in one e-commerce application, and you need to work something with your cart schema. So in the cart schema, you know that okay, I'm going to get how many products that user already added, which product that user added, right, and what is the quantity, and based on that you need to create. Okay, this is nothing, that's it. Next, what we are going to do, right, so let's click on let's go to helpers, and then I'm just going to take this helper. So I'll just copy this and then just paste it here. Okay, so this will be our validate body. So I'm just going to explain what we are doing here. So first let's import Zod. Also we need next function from express, and also we need our request. So I'll do type. So we need type request and type response. Okay, so this is nothing but what we are simply doing, that whatever body, right, whatever request that we are going to get from our client side, we need to validate that body And that body, how we are going to validate, we have a schema, that schema that we have created here. For example, let's say we want to validate the registered schema, so we want to pass this schema as the input here, and this is going to check that registered schema dot save parts is going to check based on request.body, means whatever information that we are going to pass from here. If something is wrong, the part that we have discussed later, right, so it's going to fail immediately, right, so we are going to send a invalid request body. So now what we are going to do simply, and to apply this we need to go to our auth, right, so let's start with our register first. So let's go to our auth, and I'm just going to go to register, and what you can do, right, simply I'm just going to use validate body, and here what you're going to pass, you're going to pass the register schema. That's it. So you don't have to do anything else, so it's going to automatically validate, right? Remember, this will work as a handler, right? So you have a middleware, so until unless this is passed, you are not going to go anywhere here, so it will be blocked in this place only. And that is the reason, if you go here, we are calling this next here. Okay, so this is first thing. Second, exact same thing you need to do in your login also. So here also you're going to do validate body, and you're going to pass the login schema, right? And this is easy to understand. So I think this is what first we need. Now next thing what we are going to do, right, so let's create one more route here, that is very important. We need to check if our admin route is working or not. So for that, after this, what I'm going to do, right, I'm going to create one more. So I'll do router.get, and in this case I want to get our user information here. But now this route will be protected by admin role. So what I mean by this, if there are two users and only one user is an admin user, so only that user can access this particular route. Now remember, this concept of middleware is very, very important, that whenever you have multiple middleware, every middleware has to satisfy the condition, then only it will move to the next middleware, right? So for example, let's see if I'm passing at that first, I need to check if the user is authenticated or not. So I'm just going to pass require access auth. So this is going to check our first level of information, that a user is now authenticated. If user is authenticated, then I'm going to check that require role, right, and this require role has to be admin. If this is admin user, then only they can access this particular route. So now I'm just going to take async, and I'll do request response, right? So let's take try catch, and here maybe what we can pass. So let's copy this, I'll change this one later. So now here what I'll do in the try, so first I'm just going to take const, and I'll do parsed. See how I'm using the schema validation, right? So I'm just going to do list user query schema, right, dot save parts in case we have any kind of query. So I'll do request.query, right, and then I'm simply going to check if parsed query dot success. If this is false, so I'm just going to return res.status of 400.json, and I will do message invalid query filters. Okay, and then what you are going to do, right, I'm just giving example, right, we are not going to implement this in the client side, but now how we are going to create the filters. Remember that point I explained. Let me just move this on here. So this point I mentioned, right, that whenever you are going to create any filters, I think I haven't written those, okay, build the database filter yourself, only include the allowed properties that you need, right? So in this case, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create the filters, and these filters will be, the type will be record of string, comma string, and here you're going to pass empty object, and now you're going to check, okay, if this parsed query dot data dot, and you can see that you have name, so you can filter based on name, email, and role, right? So we want to filter based on role, so in that case I just want to do filters dot role, and this will be parsed query dot data dot role, something like this. And similarly you need to do for your name and email. So we'll do name, and this will be name. Then you have email, so this will be email, and this will be email. Okay, So now what you are going to do simply, so you'll simply pass const extract users list, and then you'll do await user dot find, and here you're going to pass the filters, and then what you'll do, right, dot select, and then you're going to pass the extract safe user select options. So it's only going to return those options only. See how we are creating all these, right? And then you're going to do res.json, and you're going to pass the users extract user list, or maybe let's do users will be extract user list. Okay, so this is how you're going to do. And if this is not the case, you're going to return 500, and I'll do failed to fetch users list. Okay, so now this is how you're going to protect routes based on role. So this is done. So now let's go to our server.ts file, and we need to now implement some logic here. Okay, so let's go to server.ts, and I'm going to close everything else. First, what we need, right, we need to install, clear this, and we npm install express, and I'll do rate limit. Okay, so first I'm going to import this. I'll do import rate limit from express rate limit, and now after this I'm going to create our limiter. So I'll do API limiter, and this will be rate limit, and here I'm just going to pass some other properties. So first we have the Windows MS, so let's do a 15 into 15 minutes. You can change this whatever you like. I'll do max of 200, standard headers true, and also I'll do legacy headers important, so I'm going to keep false. And what I'm going to pass the message, so in the message I'm going to pass message, and this will be too many requests, please try again later. Okay, so this will be the first one. So let's copy this, paste it here, and this will be our auth limiter, and this will be max. I'm just going to do 10 standard headers, this will be correct, and I'm just going to do too many auth attempts, please try again later. Okay, so this is done. Next will be, also we need to do what, we need to I think we haven't installed the helmet, right? So we need to install helmet for our standard headers. So I'm going to clear this. I'll do npm install helmet, so let's use it here. So I'm just going to do app.use, and I'm going to do helmet. Okay, so now what will be our next step? Next step will be, so we are using the API headers here, right? So now what we are going to do, okay, we need to use the limiters. So I'm just going to do app.use, and here I'm just going to do /API. So for every this endpoint I want to apply the API limiter. Okay, and whenever I'm going to do /API /auth /login, so in that case I'm going to apply the auth limiter. I hope this is clear. And the same thing I need to do for register also. Okay, so this will be register, and this will be refresh, and I think this is done. So now with this I think we have completed. So let's save this. Let's see if we are getting any error or not. Okay, so I think we don't have any error, but our rate limiting logic is not yet completed, right? So how we are going to do that? So first let's go to our helpers, and here we need to create now helpers, okay, to lock our account, right, or check that how many user or the number of failed attempts. Okay, so how we are going to do that? First of all, what I'm going to do, right, so let's create our first function, which will be export async function, and I'm just going to do register failed login attempt. So here I'm going to get user information, and here I'm going to pass login attempts. So this will be number. I'm going to do log until, means after till how much time I want to log this. So I'm just going to do date, or maybe let's do null. What else? Maybe let's take a save method here, and here I'm just going to do promise, and I'm just going to do here unknown. Okay, so now what you're going to do right here, so first I will do that const next attempts will be what? Login attempts, sorry, user dot login attempts plus 1. So you're going to increase, and let's do a max login attempts of 5. So I'll do login max 5, and let's do a const login lock until, and maybe let's do 15 minutes. Okay, so now first of all I need to check if the next attempts is greater than or equal login max. So that means what I'm going to do here, so first I'm just going to do user dot login attempts will become 0, and then I'll do user dot lock until will become new date of date dot now, plus I have to add how much time rate, so this I want to add here, that's it. Okay, else user dot login attempts will be the next attempts, right? So every time I'm going to increase by 1, so this will be equal to next attempts. And also what you need to do, you need to do await, and we'll do user dot save. Okay, that's it. So now I think this is done. So next thing will be, we also need one more to clear all the failed login attempts if the login attempts is somehow successful. So in that case I'm just going to do one more. So I'll do export async function. So I'll do clear failed login attempts. This will be user. So here also I'm going to take the same thing. Okay, so here I'm just going to simply check if the user dot login attempts is equal to 0, and if this is false, we'll do user dot lock until if this is false. So I'm just going to return, or else I'm simply going to set this to 0. So login attempts will be 0, user dot lock until will become null, and I'll do await user dot save. Okay, that's it. What else? Okay, we also need to check if the account is locked or not of that user. So I'm just going to do export function. So I'll do is account locked, and here I'm just going to do user, and let's do a lock until, and here I'm just going to do date or null, and here what we're going to do, simply we're going to return boolean, and I'll do user dot lock until, and if the user dot lock until dot get time, if this is greater than current time, that's it. That means the account will be locked. I think these all the things that we need now. So let's go to our models, and we need to add these two properties. So first we'll go here, and I'm just going to add the login attempts. So let me just copy what is the properties that we've taken, login attempts. So this type will be number, and default will be 0. Also we need to take lock until, right? So we have lock until, this property. So I'll just add here lock until, and this type will become date, and here I'm just going to do default will be null. That's it. So now where we need to add this logic here, so we need to add this in our login route. Why? Because here once we will check that if the user is present or not. If the user is not present, you're returning invalid email or address, which is fine. Before you check the password, you're going to first check that, okay, check if the user account is locked. Okay, so we'll do if. So here I'm just going to do is account locked, and we're going to pass user. Now I'm just simply going to do what? So I'm going to return. So I'll do raise dot status of 429. .json, and you're going to pass a message. Okay, so I'll do too many login attempts. Okay, please try again later, something like that. So this is the first check you need to give, and you also need to return. Then here, once you'll do okay, the password check is wrong, so what you will do, simply do await, and you're going to do register failed login attempt. Okay, and here I think spelling is wrong, but you can change this one. So, and here we're going to pass the user. So here every time user is going to pass a wrong password, we are going to increase the count. I hope this is clear. And then what you're going to do, right, again inside this I'm just going to check this thing, that if the user account is already locked, so you're going to return. So copy this and we're going to do here. Okay, or else we are simply going to return 401. But if this is not the case, once user will give proper password, we need to clear that also, or else user will not be able to log in anytime. So we're going to do clear login failed login attempts. Okay, and here you're going to pass the user. That's it. So this is what we actually need. So this is going to handle the account lock part. Okay, so with this, now this part is completed. So what will be our next step? Next step will be, now I think we have completed everything on the server file. I think, let me just check if we have anything. We have used cookie parser, implemented the rate limiting, using the routes, using helmet, or limited all these things, and disable this. Okay, so now let's change some of the things in the front end, and then we are going to test it, that if everything is working or not. All right, so now let's go to our front end. So in the front end, first what we will do, right, so first will be, we need to go to our pages, home page, and let's take one more state here. Okay, so I'm just going to do const, and maybe we also need to take, I think we already have a user. Okay, this is fine. So I'm just going to take one more state here. I'm just going to do users, and I'm going to do set users, and this will be use state. And here what I'm going to do, simply, so this will be my user of array, and initially I'm going to take this one as array, like that. Also we need to take one logout logic also we need to change. See, this part we have missed. So first I'm just going to remove this. So I'm going to take try catch. Okay, and here for now we already have a set message, right? So I'm just going to do set message, and here I'm just going to do logout failed. And in the try, what you're going to do, I'll do await api.post, and I'm just going to do auth/logout. Okay, and also you need to do this on async. That's it. And what you're going to do, right, so I'm just going to do set user will be null, and I'm just going to do set users will be empty, and let's do a logout success. No, not here. Okay, so this will be the first step. Second will be, now we also need to have one more button here. Okay, maybe what I can do, right, you can just render one button. Let me just copy from here, or maybe let's do here only, just we don't care about the UI, right? So we'll do admin check. So we'll do admin check, or maybe let's take one h3 here, or h1, that admin test. And this will be if the user is present, then only we need to do it. That is also correct. So maybe what we'll do, right, we'll cut it from here. Let's do it here only, that if admin test, and I'll do get all users. I'll do get all users. Okay, and now I'm just going to do an on click, and I'll do handle fetch all users, and let's create this. I'll do async function handle fetch all users, and what we are going to do, simply I'll do try catch, and I'll do set users will be empty, and here I'll do const res await api.get, and this will be /auth/users, and I'm just going to do set all users, set users will be res.data.users, right? I think we have users, or what we are returning. Let me just check. not this one, users. Okay, so now what will be the next step? So this we are setting, I think that will be fine. Save this. So now what will be our next step? First I'm going to check it that if this is working or not. So I'll go here and let's try to log in, and I remember I created one with john2@gmail.com, and I'll do 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's log in and then try to get all users, and you see, so you have forbidden or you don't have access, means this only admin user can access. So if I log out, go to register, before that we need to do one change, right? And that is, we don't want to change in the DB now. For now let's go to models and let's keep the by default as admin. So the next user will be created, it will be created as admin. So I'll just go here and I'll do admin 5, let's give admin 5, and I'll do admin5@gmail.com, 1 2 3 4 5 6, register, and I'll do that. Try to log in, right? And now try to get all users. Fantastic. So now you are getting all the users that I have created. I'm not rendering those now, but it's about if it is working or not. So you are able to fetch the users. Fantastic, right? So that means this is working fine. So now what we are going to do, right? One more thing we need to check. Let me just quickly see one more thing. So in the load me, right? I think this is fine. Let's see what is happening one more time. One very important point we need to test, and that is if I log out and if I go to login, and let's see if I try to do admin 5 only and 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, right? So I log in, do one more, see what you're getting, 429. So now you're getting too many auth attempts, please try again later. So you won't be able to access for that particular time. That means this is now locked, right? So this is working fine. I wanted to show you this. Even if you just refresh this, right? Let's see what is happening here. And then I'll do 1 2 3 4 5 6, login. Even if you do correct information also or correct credentials also, you're getting the same message here. This is very important. So what is happening here, this will be now locked until unless the time will be over, then you'll be able to access again. Okay, so that means this lock part is also working. So with this, now I think we have completed all the things. So first let's sum up that what are the things that we have learned so far, right? So you've learned that token, how you can work with token, cookies, right? CSRF, CORS, RBAC, role-based access control, rate limiting, how to work with rate limiting, two types of rate limiting, IP level and the account level, right? How you can, this is very important guys, I'm repeating once again, DB queries, that how you are going to validate input first, sanitize input, then you're going to build the database query by yourself, okay? And then how you're going to manage ENV. This is just explanation, but you have to practice all of this, right? For example, let's say don't put your or push your ENVs into GitHub, all those things. So with this, now we have completed all the things. Now what I'm going to do, right, I'm going to push all the changes to GitHub, and now let's deploy once again this updated application. So let's see how you're going to do that in the next part. All right, so now we have completed all the sections, right? So we have discussed that how you can work with cookies, env variables, right? How you're going to manage different kind of tokens, right? How you can validate your request, all the things. So, and also in the initial you have discussed that how you're going to deploy the same application using Docker manager, right? And I also told you that I'm going to show you that how you're going to deploy the same application via terminal, very simple way. But before that, you should push all the changes to GitHub. And if you already have the updated code already downloaded from my website, then you can use the same, right? You have to first check a couple of things, and that is in your client side, right? Check in the Docker file you are using, actually copying all the source code, and also in your Docker Compose you are using all the env variables, because remember we have added some more variables, right? So this is very important. So first thing what we are going to do, right, so we are going to log in using our root access. So I'm going to copy this and let's go to our terminal, right? So I'm just going to, let's keep this one like this, and then I'm just going to connect. So first I'm just going to do yes, and then let's give my root password of my VPS. Okay, so now I'm inside VPS. It is very simple. So what you are going to do simply, so first, and also you will see that because we already have Docker Manager installed, so you don't have to install Docker or Git or anything. If you don't have, so you have to install all of this, and for that I also have a separated dedicated video for that. So first we need to just clone our repo, right? So this will be your URL. Now remember, you have to give your own username and the repo name that you are using. So I'm just going to copy this, right, and you just have to clone this one. That's it. This is done, and then just go to that particular folder inside VPS. So you're in this folder, and then we just have to add the envs, right? And this is very simple. So go to code, go to our server, and I've already added all of this. So what you have to do, right, you have to actually add the CORS allowed origins. So here you just have to add your VPS IP, the WAIT API URL you have to change, and the client URL. Okay, and then just copy this, and then you'll paste it here, and you'll do Control O, enter, Control X. Okay, and if you want to check it, so you can check it here, so it is present, right? And at the end we just have to build it. So we'll just copy this and then paste it here. That's it. So let's wait for some time. That's it. So this is done. So now we can just visit our URL and let's see if the changes are reflecting or not. That's it. So now let's go to our register, and I'm just going to give one new name. I'm going to add one new user. So I'm going to do sam@gmail.com 1 2 3 4 5 6. So register, and then try to log in with this user. Okay, so this is done, and if you go to application, so you can see that all the tokens and everything. Even if you refresh this page, you're going to get it. So you're going to pass all the information here, see, right? So if you try to get all users, you can see that we are getting users. Reason why? Because this user is actually registered as admin. Why? Because you can see, remember, I already changed the model from user to admin in the default part. So what I mean by this, if you go to server and then go to models, you'll see that we have this role as admin. So that is the reason you are able to access this. And if you try to log out, let's go to login, and I'll do sam@ and I'll give a wrong password. Try to log in, and let's do for a couple of times, and you can see that you are getting, and the rate limiting is also working, right? Too many requests, please try again later. Awesome. So with this, now we have completed this particular video. Now remember, we haven't implemented the HTTPS or custom domain. The reason is very simple, because I already have multiple videos, and I think some of you already know. You can go to my channel. I will also add those videos in the description, right? And also maybe in the comment. So I have multiple videos, dedicated videos on VPS deployment with custom domain, so you can follow those videos. But for this particular one, the idea is to understand the process and especially all the concepts that we have learned so far. So with this, that's all for this particular video. I will see you in my next video. Till then, good luck and peace.